Hello and welcome to the Drummergy Podcast. It is episode 134 weeks. And I'm here with my buddy, Big J.
What took so long?
What took so long to get you here?
Yeah.
Well, you're a morning radio host and you're normally working.
Yeah. Normally I'm kind of watching from afar on the Facebook.
Yes.
When you're doing this, and I'm like, oh hey, ever since back when it was Coffee with Fred.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, it's always on Tuesday mornings. I wish you would do this in the afternoon where I could pay attention.
You know, I tried doing this at different times of day, and no matter when I did it, people would be like, I would watch this if you did this at this other time of day.
Yeah.
And so I kept shifting around, and I was like, you know what? 7 a.m. seemed like a good time.
Well, I mean, listen, while I'm at work, I'm up watching,
Yeah, you are. I see you pop on there for a moment.
I'll
knowing that you're like double dutying.
At
the same time.
Yeah.
But
just the thing Nick loves is distractions. So,
yes. It's like, what are you doing over there? I'm watching Fred. Anthony Fagiano's here.
All right.
He says, hey, donkeys.
What's up, Wrinkles?
Hey, little burrito. We have all these silly sayings with Midline that it just never.
Who knows?
stops.
I don't even remember where they came from, to be perfectly honest.
That's Anthony's way. It's Anthony's way.
Yeah, he's Wrinkles in my phone. And
Oh,
sometimes I forget.
Yeah.
I'm like, why don't I have his number? And then I'm like, oh, because
I do.
I don't have it as a regular name.
Exactly. You got to look up Wrinkles. I have a certain amount of friends that either their nickname is in there or something ridiculous. And then same, like, I'm trying to find somebody so-and-so's number. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
this is a family show.
Right.
So I can't, your name has got a swear word in it in my phone.
Is it because I asked you to be here at 6:45?
No. Nope. Just because you're that awesome.
Hey, it was we just had 4th of July.
Yeah.
On a Friday.
Yeah.
Which is like
That's
the best.
the most American thing we can do.
Yeah. It's my favorite holiday. 4th of July is my favorite holiday.
And why is it? Because of freedom?
Well, I mean, that's associated with it, but there's just like this party on the block right here, and it's fun. I love my neighbors. My neighbors are so cool, and we all get together, and everybody has their fireworks, and I'm sure our neighborhood's not alone in this, but there's a lot of really big aerial stuff that goes on for like 2+ hours. And so we spend the day doing the barbecue thing and then fireworks and hanging out with friends and family. And it's just, I just love it.
It is. I used to be that way. And then we got dogs. And so like our family is very pet orientated.
Sure.
And so it's a stressful time. And I think it's not just like the 4th of July part. It's the people who want to extend that. Preview it for it. So you've got a good week of explosions going on and dogs freaking out. And then, I've gotten older and I do a lot less of the partying. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. Middleton, by the way, is where I live, and they have a fantastic fireworks show.
Yeah.
We live a block and a half away from the park where they fire it off.
Oh, there you go.
I fell asleep like before it even happened.
Well, we were talking about your schedule just before we hit go live, and you get up like at 3:34 in the morning and head into Boise for your job. And
I wake up and then usually just boom, right out of bed, bam. And then 10 minutes later, I'm out the door.
Yeah.
But one of those things on the way over here, I'm like, I got to figure out timing wise. Cause one thing that is completely foreign to me is morning traffic.
Oh, you skipped that.
Yeah. Aside from hearing the traffic reports and sometimes doing the traffic reports, which is a lot of fun. I don't experience morning traffic. It's the best thing ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or coming home. But either way, it's the traffic in the Treasure Valley has grown immensely.
Oh man. It just even moving around anywhere within a 5-mile radius of where I live, it's a challenge.
Yeah. But I mean, and now I'm almost 50. I'll be 50 in I'm actually going to be turning 49 here in August. So, we've been doing the morning show for 18 years.
Wow.
In August, when I turned 49, the next day is the day we started the morning show that we celebrate our birthday then. So we'll be 19, starting our 19th year on August 27th. So it accumulates when you get up that early. And for the first 5-6 years, we still went out and did this thing we're doing. I was still partying pretty hard. And so it was okay then. But as you gotten older with kids and stuff, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. And you need more sleep. You just need more sleep in order to be healthy. And so I'm going to bed 8:30. 9 o'clock on the weekdays, and I got a routine, and if I get out of that routine, I won't get the sleep I need.
Yeah, you're just wrecked. You're wrecked. Even just Brian Hoyt's here. He says, "What's up?"
All right, Brian.
Brian. I think
all the way
Brian
from Indianapolis.
Somewhere.
I think he's in Indianapolis or he's in Iowa, somewhere in that area.
Brian, tell us where you are. We want to know,
and how desperate he is to come home.
So. Jay is the co-host of The Morning After with Nic and Big J on KQXR 100.3 The X Rocks.
30 years.
30 years.
30 years this year.
30 years. That was one of my questions I was going to ask is I can't read that.
Yeah.
What is that?
That's not English, Brian.
Iowa. That's what it is.
Stop doing this to us.
Iowa. First of all, I can't hardly see the screen because I'm at that distance where I'm like, should I put my glasses on or not?
Yeah.
So wow, 30 years.
Yeah.
Of the
station.
Of the station. But how long is you said 18 years for The Morning After. Yeah. The a lot of people hear your voice every single morning
and have
Monday through Friday
for a long time.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it hasn't pissed them off enough yet. unless one of us is on vacation.
Yes.
Like we will get complaints. I get the most complaints because I'm not traditional and I'm not, all kempt and, Nic is an extraordinary broadcaster. Like he's really good. He's really good solo. But when we've been doing it so long and when we mess up the format, it makes people upset. And the last couple times when he goes on vacation, I've gotten some complaints about I don't feel enthusiastic.
Really?
And I'm like, you don't even know how hard it is because he is the showrunner, for example. Like he's behind the soundboard and he's making sure we're on time and making sure that everything is hitting the way it needs to hit as far as the cues and just running the board.
Yeah.
I don't do that on a regular basis. So when I get in there and start doing it, I have to refresh myself. And so there is a propensity for me to screw up. And we have an entire best of blunders of me just messing stuff up while he's on vacation. And so it's not as hard on him when I'm gone.
Yeah.
But it's like a whole stressful thing when
I'm doing. Really, what do they email in or message?
Yeah, text us.
And they're like, man,
you suck, bro. It's like going back to the beginning. It's great.
All the Simon Cowells that are out there listening.
No. And here's the thing. So old Big J would have yelled and swore at the person, but instead I'm like, hey man, this isn't as easy as it looks. And I need to refresh myself on how to run this thing.
Yeah.
Especially when we got a new studio. So I think you've been in there. The new studio.
Yeah, it's nice.
So we have this new beautiful board and it's very technical. And so if you don't spend time with it, it's like, a foreign language.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where, people hear something that isn't familiar and it throws them off a little bit. It throws them out of their morning routine. Sure. So we hate to take vacation.
Yeah.
For that reason.
When I made the promo with you in it for this morning, Rush is my favorite band. Obviously, you know that, right?
When I heard that, I was like, okay, is he trolling? And then I listened to the song, the words, and I'm like, okay, this actually fits with what we're going to be talking about. It made sense. But you probably know Rush is one of my least favorite artists.
Well, probably. I think Rush is one of those bands you either like them or you're just like, eh.
Here's the thing, and here's what a lot of people might know. Rush is the reason I owed Columbia House so much money.
Is it really?
It was the Crush Chronicles or the Rush Chronicles. Was the thing that I wanted to buy from Columbia House. And so then I got all the other free CDs and everything like that. But it was the Rush because when I was younger, I got into it for some reason. And then I fell out of that at some point. And I think I've kind of gotten over the whole voice thing, but it doesn't make me as angry as it used to.
Yeah, that's old Rush. Geddy Lee's voice is pretty high.
Yeah.
And then as they got older, their later albums. I think it was probably more digestible for the general public.
Yeah.
His voice.
Yeah.
But the Spirit of Radio is that song that I attached with Begin the Day with a Friendly Voice, a companion unobtrusive.
Yeah.
And I thought that's perfect for everybody in drive time traffic that are listening to the morning after.
It was perfect. It's like you can't go wrong with that.
No.
And so here's the thing: just because like I don't like something doesn't mean I don't respect it or know its place or how good it is. Obviously, Rush is amazing, and a lot of people love it. So
yeah.
But again, this is the difference in like maturing as an adult.
Sure.
Like 15 years ago, I would not have had that opinion.
But I think everybody goes through that.
Yeah.
With their tastes. Or they're like I'm not a guy who's a fan of rap and hip hop, and there's so many genres of all of that going so many ways that when I was younger I would be just like I can't handle it. Now I can kind of dig it for what it is and appreciate it without feeling like, oh, I should download all that music.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but there is some limits, and for me that limit is country music. I was debated on wearing my Cliff Miller music shirt. I have a couple of them.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to be a shill, because I love Cliff and I love you guys and what you do. But I told Cliff, I go, hey, listen, I'll wear these shirts to the end of the day. I'll go out and represent, but I ain't going to listen because it makes me angry. Like country music, it's just one of those things where I don't know. It's like an inside reaction.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think it's part of how I grew up in a small town in Montana where there was no escape from it. So
well, yeah, there's that. I myself was never. No, I couldn't tell you anything about anybody in country music, even though I play in a band with Cliff.
Even now,
I like if we do. There's a handful of songs that we do that are traditional country stuff. But it's none of the modern country stuff.
Right.
It's all, I don't know if they call it red dirt country or a more Americana country.
Red dirt's a good.
And I bring a certain rock element.
A little more splash.
Yeah. To the table with that. But I think Cliff is an excellent, prolific songwriter. And he's just like, I have a few musician friends like that just, they have songs that just keep coming out,
which is amazing.
Yeah, they just keep coming up with new material, something new to say, and I just like I don't have that.
Yeah,
if I write a song, it takes me forever to write a song, and it's like one every 15 years or something like that. It's not. Dane Mullen is here, Drummergy with Big J.
Dane, hell of a drummer himself.
Yes. I can't remember who he's drumming for right now.
I think it's oh man, he's gonna kill me on this. I think it's 5. He's still in a couple bands. The Reason? No, he's gonna beat me up now. Okay, I knew I was gonna get put on the spot.
He says rocker here, but I drive. This is me trying to read where the producer's gonna say, "What is your deal?"
I drive people around me crazy because I'll get stuck on a good song from any genre. A good song is a good song.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, Thank you, Mrs. Producer.
Reason Within and Problem 5. I was getting them mixed up. Dane, love you, dude.
Jim Reidenbaugh's here. Good morning, Jim. Yeah, the Alfred and I were playing with another band here in town, but was more funk, soul, R&B stuff. And we ended up not being in that band anymore. And we were like, what are we going to do? And of course, we've been playing in Cure for the Fall with Cliff.
Yeah.
And Cliff had a cover band, more country driven thing. And he kept getting more and more of his own songs. He's like, I need to do my own thing under my own name. And so it just came at the perfect time for us to jump over and do that.
And I hope, and I know you guys have played a lot of shows, I just want nothing but success for Cliff because I love him.
Yeah, me too. He's one of my closest friends. He and Mr. Anthony.
Yeah, love them all.
So I know we kind of skipped over this, but I'm going to go backwards for a little bit.
Yeah, go backwards. I'm sorry, I'm taking
over. No, you're supposed to do that. I usually do these goofy holidays. Today is National Raspberry Day.
Great.
So maybe when you're heading home, you can get some raspberries and take them home to the missus.
I'm not a raspberry fan.
What are you kidding me?
No, it's a fruit. So
it's a fruit.
We don't do fruits or vegetables over here. Raspberry, not one of my favorites.
Okay, well, you're in luck because today is National Cow Appreciation Day.
Cow? Oh, cow appreciation.
Yeah.
I'll appreciate a cow.
Yes.
After it's cut up.
Yes, they taste delicious.
Yeah, they do. You're right. I'll take a good steak any day.
So, I'm scanning my notes here.
I love how they're written out on a piece of paper.
Yes,
like your handwritten notes. I wondered what this is going to look like because
this is what my
it's too whited out.
Yeah,
with the light.
Yeah, this is where my thoughts ramble.
First, I want to say, like, as somebody who is in the content creation, atmosphere.
Yes.
Like what you guys have been doing and done for a long time looks really good.
Thank you.
Like it looks great. I've complimented you numerous times on your thumbnails.
Yeah.
And I wish people compliment me because they are not easy to do. And so, all the cover art and everything that you guys do is fantastic.
Thank you.
Like it just looks great. Like the promo clips that you put together for this are amazing.
Thanks.
I don't know. I think Mary does all that.
I do it.
Oh, you've been doing it.
Yeah,
yes. Mary's been doing a lot of this stuff for a long time.
Oh,
I don't know if she gets credit for it enough.
I try to make sure that she does credit. When we first started dating, Midline was like skyrocketing in the local scene and the Pacific Northwest and
1970 something.
No. This would be in 94, 95.
Yeah, right about
on the radio.
Right about when pirate radio came to conclusion.
Yeah, we were just it was a really cool time for us. And so I started dating Mary and she got into videoing the band. Mostly because we would just evaluate. We'd watch the game footage, later on after the gig or whatever. So that she got involved with that. And that was, we'll be married 29 years in September.
Jeez.
Yeah. I can't get rid of her.
Congratulations.
I've tried.
It's more, she can't get rid of you.
That's true. Yes. But, over time and her involvement with all the music stuff that we do and her involvement with her own music stuff and just websites and flyers and putting advertisement stuff together, just like
all the hard stuff.
Yeah.
That it's not sexy.
And like you said, like a lot of times goes unnoticed or underappreciated, all the hours and effort that gets put into that. So when it came to doing my podcast stuff, it was like, I need to figure out how to do this so I don't have to constantly be, hey, how does this work? How do I do this?
Yeah.
How do we move forward with so that I didn't have to constantly lean on her for those kind of things. So I'm learning, man.
She's like, I need a break.
Yes.
But yeah, you handwrite these things out. Maybe try typing them and then printing them out so that you can read it.
Yes. It's very scribbly. Sometimes I have this paper out and depending on who I'm going to be talking to, I might be up till 11 midnight the night before. My mind won't shut off.
Yeah.
I'll think, I need to ask about whatever it is.
That's why doing this is so fun for me, because I don't have to do any of that.
Yeah.
It's like when we have a band in for an X session or whatever. I mean, I don't know. My approach has always been not to over prepare. Yeah. Because I think it confuses my brain. I don't, have the smartest, I think delivery at times, and I'll fumble over questions that I've written out.
Yeah.
And I've, it's been there are times if you listen to the morning after, okay, and we do an interview with somebody on the phone in particular, I will ask a question and it will spiral for me while I'm asking it.
Yeah.
And it'll just turn into a statement instead of a question. And it's like both Nick and I will look at each other and like, what the hell was that? and obviously we edit some of that out, but it's hilarious to us because I still do it and it's just part of who I am. So I try not to
exactly.
I try not to over prepare and also stay authentic to, what I am.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to, start ruining what's turned out to be a good thing by actually being prepared for an interview.
Well, I mean, you've been there 18 years. I mean, you've been 20, there longer than that.
25 now.
Yeah. So, but you said being authentic. Like, I think because I know you, when I hear those, what you would consider a blunder or something, I'm just like, oh, that's Jeremi.
Yeah. But
that's just who you are.
I've always worried about this is the time has rolled on far beyond when I thought that I would still be doing this.
Yeah.
And that is that new people who come into the Treasure Valley and who listen, are they going to get it? Or just think, God, why would they let this idiot on the radio? And so the thing about that is that, like with you and a lot of other people, like I've grown up on the radio.
Yeah.
Like I matured as a human being on the radio. And because it's a rock station and not a pop station or some other kind of format, you're more allowed to be yourself, really, when you get down to it in the format of radio. And so, I've taken everything that happens in my life and put it on the radio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what happens is there is like a bonding between the listeners and myself in a lot of ways. And it's been a really, really good thing, and it's unique, and it doesn't happen every place. But I always used to worry about that. And then as 10 years have rolled on since worrying about that, I stopped because apparently it's working. So I think people get it that I'm just, I guess, a personality more than anything, but authentic to this, how I am.
Yeah.
And this might not be your notes, but I was thinking about this as we're going to do this podcast together. And I'm like, I knew you before I was in radio.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I worked at Avis Rent-A-Car and you worked at Hertz.
I worked at Hertz. Yeah.
The first local music I ever really heard was Midline, because Tanya, who was the person I worked with at Avis.
Yeah.
We worked in this car or this, van outside the airport.
Yeah. Because
checking people in.
And
she would pop in Midline. It was the Silver album. And so this is the first local band I ever heard.
Nice.
And then got to meet you, but didn't know you from Bupkis.
Yeah.
And you were really nice and sweet. And it didn't occur to me until after, about a year and a half after I started working in radio, when I met you guys officially. It was the Boise River Music Festival, or the Boise River Festival.
Yeah, the River Festival. Yeah.
That I put two and two together and realized, because you had the dreads.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's the guy from Hertz.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting.
Yeah.
Just crazy how.
That's when we first met, out there on the car line somewhere, and maybe not. I was like, did I officially? I know I talked to you and but I don't think there was ever I'm Fred and I'm Jeremi kind of a moment.
No, you're right about
that. Yeah. But same. I met you and I talked to you off and on and interacted. Of course, at the same time, we're going a million miles an hour.
Oh yeah.
Getting cars ready to go. And then I remember how excited I was for you when you got into radio. It was really, really cool because like you said a moment ago, like we grew up on radio, listening to radio.
Yeah.
I remember like being a little kid and listening to the radio in my grandparents' kitchen, and you would hear Paul Harvey.
Right.
And that was like a soothing voice.
Yeah.
And it was familiar, and so you kind of get used to that. And then as I had bands in high school and then after high school, always have this rock star dream of being on the radio. Like, oh, these bands do that. My band's going to do that too. And, I know like J105 was like the big thing when I was a kid.
Right. Yeah.
That was the deal. And it was Spike and Brian.
Right.
And you would hear Spike and Brian. I would hear them all the time while I was getting ready for school, and they were playing my favorite songs. And you feel like, even though you never met them, you feel like you start to know them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then when you finally meet them in person, I don't know, there was like a comfort.
Yeah.
That
because
meeting.
You know them.
Yeah.
They don't know you.
It
is one of those weird dynamics where, and it happens still to this day all the time. And I do my best to try to, make it look like I know them back.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can't remember people, or they'll share a story from 15 years ago.
Right. And then you have to put yourself back in that moment.
Yeah, I tried to, because I'm drinking a lot and having a lot of fun, mostly concerts. It's going to be hard to remember that, but I totally understand what you mean.
Yeah.
And out there at Avis Rent-A-Car is when I first started to work in radio. And it's also when it was really me out there listening to Bill and Doug, because what happened was, and this is one of those things where it's like there were forces pushing me to be in radio. It wasn't something I was seeking to do.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into that.
Yeah.
Like where do we go from the guy checking in cars at Avis to into radio? You said this like something pushing.
Something was pushing. Well, here I'm going to go with the preface of this, and this is where the world gets really small. Okay. Yeah. So my family moved here to the Treasure Valley in 1988. My dad was a long haul truck driver, and he wasn't home very much in Montana. So we moved here. My sister was just setting up shop. She just graduated from Montana State University, and she was about to get married. And so my mom and I moved here. We moved here with a friend of my mom's. Her name was Sherry, and her son Mike. And he was high school age when we moved. I was just elementary, just getting into junior high. And so we lived in the same house together for about a year and a half. What I didn't know is while he was going to high school, he was spending his nights and evening hours sneaking into mountain billiards.
Oh,
and he was becoming a pool shark.
Okay.
Of course, mountain billiards was the home of pirate radio.
Yes. Yeah.
And you spent plenty of time there, I'm sure. And so did a lot of other people. And so he would, go and he would pool shark people and win a bunch of money. I didn't know any of this was going on. And so years go on. We'll do a time jump. Okay?
Yeah.
So jump like 15, 20 years past that. I'm at the mall working part-time because when you're getting into radio, you need extra jobs. And I was working with this fella. His name was Mark. But he was like, hey, I work at Pirate Radio. And I go, oh, really? And he goes, yeah, my name was Renegade. So he was Renegade on Pirate Radio. And so he was asking me where I was from and everything. I told him I was from Montana. He goes, I know a guy from Montana. His name was Montana Mike. And I'm like, tell me about this guy. So he was telling me about him. I'm like, oh my God, that's the guy we moved here from Montana with. And he was well known amongst all the DJs at Pirate Radio.
Because he was there doing the
Yeah. And I'm like, that's crazy to me, because now I work at this radio station that he was kind of like, had dalliances with. It was just one of those weird observations. I'm like, is this the Truman Show? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But what happened is that in high school, I was super into politics. I was student body president, all of that stuff. That was where I was going to do a career. I wanted to do a career in politics. So when I graduated from high school in 1996, at that time I was working for the Idaho State Republican Party. And I was like, I'm going to take a year off. And I was asked to work on Senator Larry Craig's reelection campaign. So I worked on that campaign. I was the manager of the phone bank. So begging people on the phone for money.
Yeah.
Oh, it was terrible. But through that whole experience, I realized I want nothing to do with politics. Mm-hmm. It's not great. And I was like a 21-year-old I had no idea what I was going to do now, because this is what everything I'd been working towards. And so I got a job at a call center, and it was lifeless, and I had a nervous breakdown. And, I didn't know, luckily I had a great family to support me. I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I took a part-time job at the Overland Park Cinema. And it was there I met this guy. His name was Richard. And we became fast friends. We loved movies together. But Richard was working part-time. He was the night guy at the X. So in like 1998 to 1999, he was the night guy. And he's like, hey, you should listen. And I was not really interested in music, or I was really like paying that much attention. Yeah. I just knew we had a lot in common with movies. But he did tell me, hey, you need to check out this show, Bill and Doug in the Morning. It's really funny. And so I started listening to that. And of course, as I needed to go to college, I needed a better job. I started working at Avis. I was working early mornings. This allowed me to listen to Bill and Doug.
Yeah.
So I, at that point, had started going to Boise State I was majoring in mass communications and journalism. I wanted to do press, like a press secretary kind of work. That's what I did enjoy about the political side, was the guy, Paul Tracy. He was the press guy for Senator Craig at the time. And I dug him and what he was doing. So I was like, maybe I can do that. On a side note, you had one of your last guests, Matt Vanderbo.
Yeah.
Him and his brother, Lee, we had a communications class together, intro to audio and video. And so I had a project actually with Lee, and it's great because, I get to meet these guys, and years later we're friends, and, we're doing stuff together. It's crazy how small the world is again. But so while that was going on, I was taking this intro class to communication, and Bill was in this class. And of course, Bill was a name where you knew who he was because he was on the radio for a long time. And I was like, oh, I know that name because Richard told me to listen. And I was like, oh, so I don't know what it was, but I just went up and introduced myself to him. And I said, hey, I'm friends with Richard. And he was like, oh, so that totally disarmed him because I knew a guy. He knew a guy. Yeah. And so we started talking and we became friends. And, I would give Bill a ride around every now and then because he would need to ride. And we became friends. But I would listen to the show every day. And I would start to call in and participate unbeknownst to them. I wouldn't say who I was. Yeah. I would just start calling in and messing with them based on whatever they were doing. Because the Bill and Doug show was like beyond years of where it should have been. It was sketch comedy. I don't think to this day there's anything like it on the radio. And it was just hilarious. And so I would call in and participate. And one day they stopped me. I was going on a pretty good rant on them because it was cold out and they were I don't know. They just seemed like they were whining about being inside. So I let them have it and they stopped me and they're like, hey, is this Jeremi? Is this the guy I go to class with? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, okay. We were wondering if you would maybe be interested in talking about sports like on a Monday. And I'm like, because they lost their sports guy. And I'm like, sure. Okay. And they said, come on in, check it out. And then we'll talk. Yeah. I'm like, okay. Yeah. So I was like, all right, cool. So I went in, checked out, watched them do their show and everything. And they're like, so you want to give this a try? I'm like, sure. So that next week, over the weekend, I watched sports and, I wrote out a thing and I came in and, we pre-recorded everything because they're like, you can't put a new guy in the live on the radio, right? Live with that guy. And it just, right before we went on air, they're like, what do we call you? And I'm like, I don't know. Jeremi's really boring. Yeah. I don't know, Big J, because I'm big. And, I wasn't even thinking that. I think probably in the back of my mind, I was thinking Big Jack Armstrong, Oh, yeah. And then I felt bad about that because I'm like, that's Big Jack's name. What am I stealing his name for? Kind of thing. But it was just one of those things where it was a last minute thing. Didn't think anything would come of it, really. Right. And through that period of time, it was instantaneous. Like, I put in a joke about Brown University beating Harvard and like a gambling joke. And immediately they go to Kenny Rogers, the gambler, and they start calling me like a gambling addict. And I'm like, I'm a straight edged kid, right? Like super Christian. And I got upset. I had a visceral response from them doing that. Yeah. And their eyes were like, ooh, this is gold. And I didn't realize it was gold. And so it just created a character from then on. And, that's how the door got opened for me in radio. Yeah. I remember, I can't say that I heard the first time you were on, but I think Bill and Doug was the show to listen to. Absolutely. And I don't know, for the Bill and Doug show for me, well, it was a different point in my life too. I was a lot younger and it reminded me of being like in high school with J105 with Spike and Brian. Like that was something that I was so listening to Bill and Doug and then knowing you through the rental car companies in the airport and then hearing you on the radio. And I'm like, I know that guy. Yeah. I already know that guy. And they would send you out to deliver concert tickets or donuts. I got a great story about that. Yeah, but they called you the magical ticket appliance. Well, it was first before the ticket appliance. It was the ticket pony. The ticket pony, yes. So check this out. This is and I started that was September of 1999. So I'm going to say it wasn't too long after that it was Blink-182 was coming to town. And they were giving out tickets. Yeah. And they're like, okay, we're going to have you go out and give tickets away. And you'd call us on the phone and then we would do a thing and they would tell me where to go. So they sent me to this house. It's not far from here, Fred. Oh, yeah. I knock on the door and who opens the door but Scott Elliott. Oh, really? Guitarist for Midline. Now Karen Comes Killing. And little did I know that within 2 years of time, I would live in that house.
Right.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
And so that was at Anthony and Scott where they were living.
Yeah.
He'd set it up to deliver tickets to them. So, that's just one of those crazy things where, that was the first time I met Scott. Anthony wasn't home. He was out working. And then, it was probably, a year later than you guys started to make an appearance in my life. And just if it wasn't for Midline, I wouldn't know a lot about music. You guys would make fun of me all the time because I didn't know jack squat. People don't realize I didn't get into music. I didn't get into the radio part on the music side, which is where most people come from.
Yeah.
I was a personality from the morning show.
Right.
I was their ticket, appliance and ticket pony and their stunt guy.
Yeah.
For the most part. And I didn't know jack squat about music because I grew up in a small town in Montana.
Yeah.
The only music I would get exposed to was soundtracks. So I didn't know, names of guys and bands except for, Metallica,
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I didn't know the difference between Van Halen and Motley Crue. I couldn't have told you then at the time, those sort of things. But you guys showed me the ropes in so many different ways, especially how live music should be,
Mm-hmm.
and those sort of things. And it's just weird how it turned out that way.
Yeah.
Just the relationship and the brotherhood that would come from me knocking on that door and not having an idea that would be the case. It's crazy.
All these little moments that added up to our friendship. Let's see. I wanted to get caught up. Dane had Daniel Marshall. Country music is 3 chords and the truth. Yep.
Or a lie.
Or lie. Dane said, absolutely. You've always made it real, Jay. You doing it the way you do is what inspires others to do things their own way. See, this is the part of the show where I try to read something. I feel like same with my drumming. I was always, where did I lose? Always so worried about not being good enough. I finally realized what people were saying when they told me I had my own style and they loved it. It's more about being your authentic self rather than being like anyone else. Sorry. Yeah. I might have to wear my glasses. It offers a lot of confidence.
Get you some bifocals.
And an opportunity to be, it's like when you wear the glasses, but they're like sliding down on your nose and you're like, no, Gary Tackett's here. Yeah. So I got to witness this journey of yours.
Yeah. From the very beginning.
Yes.
It's kind of weird. And so, yeah, Bill and Doug was the door for me. They opened the door. And I started, I realized early on, I was like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, I think I want to do this, but I wasn't thinking like a career or anything like that. I don't know. I was just kind of wandering. I was enjoying my time at Avis Rent-A-Car because I really liked working there. I liked the people I was working with. I didn't like going back to school. I struggled mightily in my studies. And so I ended up kind of dropping out when I realized I wanted to push all my chips into radio.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up quitting Avis Rent-A-Car as well. But you were part of that pivotal decision as well, because what happened is I was offered a job from the operations manager, because what would happen is I would come in and do the Bill and Doug thing in the morning, and then it's like, okay, then what? Well, I would kind of hang out at the radio station a little bit, just to learn, and nobody was making me leave yet. So I was like, all right, I hang out. And pretty soon I became a fixture, Yeah. And so the operations manager goes, you're pretty talented. And I was like, I heard that he doesn't give a lot of compliments. So I was like, that's crazy. Sure. Would you like a job here? And I'm like, yes, I would. And it was to work behind the scenes, working soundboards. So on the weekends, live broadcasts and things like that, I'd be the guy back hitting the buttons and things for the talent that were out. That's the actual reason I got hired at the radio station, was to do that. But that happened on the weekends, and it got to a point where I was having to decide, am I going to work at Avis Rent-A-Car full time, health insurance, all that, for this thing on the weekends. And I was really struggling with that decision. And then 2001 rolled around, and it was the the Boise River Festival. So there was a huge local stage out there at Bogey's.
Yep.
Steve Fulton running everything,
Yep.
and so got a chance to meet him. But it was the first time I got to introduce bands. Got to get up and watch you get it. Bill was there and Doug.
Yeah.
And so we were introducing the bands on there. I was having a blast. Now while that was happening, the Up in Smoke tour was coming to the Treasure Valley. So Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, that whole thing.
Yeah.
And basically what happened is Creston had put out it was one of the last dates on this tour, and it was an open date. And they're like, they were either going to have it in Spokane or Boise. And so they had like a kind of like a survey of people. And so the station was part of trying to get people to sign this thing so that the tour would come here. Because at the time, alternative music, we're an alternative radio station. We were playing Forgot About Dre. And so Dr. Dre and Eminem were on the station on a regular. Jason, who was the boss, he had a specialty show on Sunday nights called the Hip Hop Show, because he would play. Right. He was the first one to play hardcore hip hop in the Treasure Valley. People don't know that. And so he was like, yeah, he was all about it. And so the show came to Boise, and as a thank you, Creston extended us some invitations to a private party that was happening with the tour. And so here's what happened. Jason wanted to do some interviews, hopefully for the show out there. And it was the bistro. And so we get out there and we walk in, and I get patted down by this huge, obviously former football player. He's got rings on and just very intimidating. I'm still a good Christian kid. All right. And so I'm just nervous as heck about this whole thing, because Jason had asked me to interview Eminem, which is crazy. Wow. Why would he do that? I have no idea. It was a big mistake. and so, but the week before, I don't know if you remember that whole thing when Eminem was getting big, but he pistol whipped a dude who was like talking to his girlfriend, and becomes his wife, And I was like, I was very intimidated.
Sure.
And so here we are at the bistro. It's a pretty chill type of situation, but there's a lot going on that I don't know anything about. A lot of marijuana being rolled. Don't know anything about that. It just, Nate Dogg is there. Dr. Dre is there. Snoop Dogg is there. I mean, this is huge, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm taking this all in, and, Jason was having a conversation with Eminem's tour manager, and Eminem was kind of standing there. His back was turned to me, and I just got nervous, and I tapped him on the shoulder, and I said, "Excuse me, Mr. Eminem." And he looks me up and down, and I put my hand out. He shakes my hand, and I was like, "So is that cool?" And he's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Doing the interview." And the manager hears this, and he's like, "Whoa, nobody talks to M on his day off about interviews," and then just blew up the whole thing.
Oh no.
And Jason's look on his face was like, "What the hell just happened?" But those interviews were never going to happen anyways. Just the atmosphere there was too much of a party. It was amazing to be a part of that. And it was at that point I realized, this is awesome. Yeah. Like I want to do this for the rest of my life. So 2 weeks after that, I quit school and I quit Avis to push all my chips. Well, my parents and family were not understanding. They weren't happy about it at all, but it turned out to be the right thing to do. But it was just one of those moments where I'm like, all of that together was just too much for me to ignore. And I'm like, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life.
So even though that you at that moment, you said, I want to do this for the rest of my life, was there just this huge wave of uncertainty that went along with it? Like,
sure.
Holy crap, what am I doing?
Sure. Yeah. I had no idea how
that's like the life of a musician.
Exactly. Well, yes.
I'm just going to dive into this world of, I don't know what's happening, but I'm going.
I think it's anyone who has a dream and they're foolish enough to really chase it, to really burn the ships and abandon everything and go forward and do it, because it could have easily just been a huge disaster. And some might think it still is. But no, it's been an amazing journey, and a lot of people have helped me get to that point. And I can't thank all of them enough. Bill and Doug, and the operations manager Dan, and all the people that I work with. Jason. Everyone has taught me something that I've tried to take and use in this business.
Yeah. So when you said, "Hey, I'm going all in with radio," and your family's like, "Whoa," how do they feel now, all these years later?
I don't. That's a great question.
Or do they go, I don't know. Maybe you need to get out of there.
Yeah. Well, I think the major concern was when I brought a girl home to live with me. at 23 and didn't know what I was doing. That was probably their biggest concern at the time. But no, I think now they're pretty happy with that decision. Obviously, I've got a wonderful family, and I wouldn't probably have that without have taken that journey. Sid is my sister. Thanks,
totally
Sid.
Proud of my little brother.
She has spent her life. She served the United States Army and then active duty, and then in the reserves, and retired from the Army and was an accountant, CPA for many years. And she and her husband just moved from Helena to the Treasure Valley. So most of the family is here now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I don't know if I've ever met your sister.
Probably not. Most of them, they weren't, maybe Carlene. I think you may have met her at the Rock and Alzheimer's show last couple of years ago.
Oh, okay.
But Sid's not somebody who's had a chance to be around a lot for some of this. So she's back now, and they're deep rooted into what's going on in the radio station. It's fun. It's fun. I love it.
Blue Flashes is here. Good morning, Fred Rock and guests.
All right, Blue.
Yeah.
My boy, Blue.
James is suggesting maybe Mary reads the comments from the side so that I'm not going like suddenly become a robot.
I didn't want to come in and start making
suggestions. This is your deal, man.
Yeah, she should have a mic as well. And you could you can make that possible, and then she can pipe in if especially if the guest knows her.
Well, it's what people don't see is that she's just in the next room right there, and she looks at you like, or she'll smile and say, "Oh yeah," but it's usually no. No, stop saying
it. That's incorrect information.
Jared's sisters are both accountants. Very practical. Radio was like, do you make a living at that?
Nope.
That's the same with musicians.
Yeah.
Do you make a living being a musician?
Not now.
I always wanted to be I always want to be a rock star.
Well, yeah.
And I still do.
Yes. You're still trying.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But it wasn't until like 5 years ago that I pushed all my chips into that, and I just had the right people involved with my life to go, you can do this, and this is how.
Because you quit the landscaping.
Yep.
And started the drumming school, right?
It was like you said, I burned the ships. There's no going back.
See, but it's easy to do that when you're 23 years old and don't have a family or a mortgage or any of that. When you're an adult and you have like multiple children who are still children, it's another story altogether. That takes a family decision.
Check this out. So, like talking about making a living, right? And where all your money's going. We have some friends who they have one child and they're a dual income family, and they're rich. Yeah. And they do all these things, and you observe that. And I don't want to say like jealousy is the right word, but there is a certain amount of like, I wish we could do those things.
Right.
So, we're more or less of a single income family from what I do. And we have 4 kids. And I asked Mary, I said, look up how much does it cost to raise a child right now without college? It's $300,000. And I have 4. That's $1.2 million.
Yeah.
of like, that sounds like a lot of money.
Yeah, don't.
And it is a lot of money.
Don't think about it. But priceless. The memories are priceless.
It's like you walk past the beer cooler and you're like, oh, I want to go in there. No, I can't drown my sorrows too much. Yeah, $1.2 million.
Insane. It's insane. It's an insane world. Right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, James says that I sound like the kid that gets scared to call on. Scared to see this
when you're writing. Yeah. Here's the thing is, and working in radio for all this time, I'm the same way. Like reading stuff, I've discovered, and I haven't actually taken a test, but I am positive I am dyslexic. I transpose numbers and letters all the time, and so it's hard to read out loud. And there was an incident in school when I was in high school. and it was like a traumatic event.
Yeah,
because I was reading out loud, and it's always been difficult. And it's like crazy that I ended up in radio, where that's what you do, is talk on the radio to thousands of people. It's insane,
right?
Doesn't make any sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When I first started doing this 134 weeks ago, Anthony says that's me. Yeah, Anthony's the same when it comes to like trying. So here's a guy that's fronting a band.
Yeah, just have him sing it.
Yeah, just sing what you're supposed to read.
Your life is a musical, Anthony.
Yeah, exactly. But Anthony says funny things like Eddie Veteran. It's because he can't remember Eddie Vedder. It's Eddie Veteran. And instead of Abrupt Edge, which was Cliff's old band, he says Erupt Edge, like the bee's gone.
Oh, I introduced them one time and called them Abrupt Corner. You don't remember this? I say this to,
but that's great.
I say this to Cliff all the time, and I felt really bad about it, but everybody laughed. And again, it's one of those things where, oh, that's just Jay, but when in other ways, and other people would be considered huge a-hole, but I wasn't trying to be mean. I just forgot or said it wrong.
Abrupt Corner. With Cliff, it's been, I think it's 2 summers ago. There's this really beautiful outdoor amphitheater in the Idaho Falls area. I think it's called Portneuf.
Oh, okay.
We were opening up for, I don't know who, I don't remember, but like it's clearly on the bass drum head says Cliff Miller, and Cliff had his signs up, Cliff Miller, and he's like, "Welcome to the stage, Clint Marshall." Or
it's not
something
even close.
Like that.
Yeah, it's not even close.
You come walking out, they say Clint Marshall, and you're like, "Wait, is there a different guy that's going to be performing?"
We're the Cliff Miller band.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Bill Willard. Fun.
Oh,
chat.
hey, Bill. Wow, Bill.
Yeah, you both rock. The beard is looking dapper.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
James says, "I'm sure there's people that are comparing or jealous of your life. The life one sees is easy to be jealous versus being in that life." Yeah. So there was some other friends of mine that were talking about something very similar to what James is saying. Is like sometimes you see somebody's life and you're like, "Oh, I really want that life," but you only see like the highlight of that.
Right.
Everybody's got some kind of financial thing that they have to, or the work that's involved to make those things happen. And but I think the radio, just you talked about just being pulled into that was the same for me. It's like you feel like it's burning inside, that just like I'm supposed to be tugged in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's 2025 and there are so many ways to listen to music.
Oh yeah.
Streaming and all of those kind of platforms, online radio stations versus terrestrial. What's your view of that now, and how does that affect what you do?
Well, I mean, it's multifaceted, and to a certain degree, there's always been concern. But when we look back on radio in general, radio was king until the TV came along. And then there was real competition. And of course, we know the Boggles video killed the radio star, the first MTV video. And that certainly wasn't the case. As we got into satellite radio, because I came into a time in radio when this was all just starting. I think I was at the radio station for about a year when Napster happened. And so that's when people were really, taken to the internet to get music and that sort of thing. So then satellite started. I think it was Sirius started, and maybe then XM started. And so there was a concern. The thing about that is I think radio is going to be fine until there's two situations. The first one is they stop making radios inside cars because it's still completely free. You don't need data. You don't need a phone. You just need a receiver and a transmitter. Yeah. And so that's an element that's very important. But the other thing is the connection that you have with the people who are on air. That's still a real thing. And you will see in cases where there's no jocks or there's remote jocks who are living in a part of the other country and doing shifts on air somewhere else. That's called voice tracking is what we call it. Those are things that are clearly not as received well when it comes to ratings and things of that nature. It's a lot more difficult. Syndicated shows, there's a few of them that are really, really big, obviously, and that's still a thing, especially in the sports world. But I think the real issue is coming with the younger generations who aren't used to listening to the radio, who are getting all of their media from their phone.
Yeah.
So we do our best to compete in that arena with, putting out the podcast of our show out every day, trying to engage with our listeners on social media whenever and wherever we can. Those are all important things. But, I think 15 years down the road, it might be a real struggle that might start to catch up to radio. But I think right now there's still clear signs that people are listening to the radio and reacting to the stuff that they hear. It's the one place you can get information about your local area when it comes to shows and concerts and things like that. I mean, we're still giving away tickets and, we still have, there's a reason we're on 18 years at this point on the morning show.
Yeah.
And we've been very fortunate to be very successful and continue to do that. Thanks to everybody who is listening right now, and maybe catch this podcast later today.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the thing is, the competition out there, Fred, is every content creator is somebody we're kind of competing with now. It's not just other radio stations or, TV events and things like that. I mean, you literally, when it comes to being out there on the phone and whether it's streaming, you can listen to us, we're streaming and that sort of thing. We're competing with other people who are creating their own content, some of them are really good and some of them aren't. Just like people on the radio.
Yeah. Yeah. So every Tuesday you have to compete with me.
Yes. It's killing us. It's murdering our numbers.
James Ewing says hi from Ohio. Hi, James in Ohio. Yeah. Thanks for checking it out, man. James Ewing, have you watched before? Your name seems familiar. Not to be confused with James Harrison. If you don't see the free radio being threatened by advertising following the trends. Did I read that right? See, this is where we're probably gonna take James's advice and have Mary read comments.
I think he's trying to say you don't hear about people saying that it's free as a response to the trends.
Oh,
trust me, people are responding to radio advertising still.
Yeah.
And I was just having a conversation, especially if, some of the radio groups are smart. They've delved into the digital radio part. And so, you already have a organization that's set up to, go out and sell. Selling the digital part is just part of that. And combining your on-air advertising opportunities with the digital is a pretty big stick to swing.
Yeah.
And it's hitting the mark in a lot of places that, I even to this day, like going back when I first started, I didn't understand how radio worked. And it still blows my mind how successful some people are with advertising on the radio, but it is not a cheap thing to do. You have to, you have to be very consistent in it, but there's a reason that a lot of people pay hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to advertise on the radio because it's very effective still. And when you combine it with the digital properties, it's a pretty big stick to swing still.
Yeah. I think, I guess I don't think about the advertising dollars as much, but I mean, that's obviously,
that's why we exist.
That's
the reason of those.
So I guess if you saw that drop off, you'd be like, uh-oh.
Yeah, there are, and there's just like any other way, especially when you have obstacles. It's all about the people you have on your team and how they approach those obstacles. And some people can throw up the white flag and walk away, or some people can, fight back and try to find ways around those obstacles. And we've got some of those people that are doing that.
Yeah.
So
I like that you can listen online.
Yeah,
I'm not always near a radio. And sometimes I might have my phone and I'm just doing stuff around the house and I can just listen to the live broadcast.
It's still imperfect, not a perfect, listening experience. There's still a delay there. So it makes it hard for people who want to take part in contests, but we've had some people who win contests who are listening online. And then making yourself available via text and those sort of things is really a great way to engage with people as well.
Yeah. So one thing I've always thought was really cool about radio is going to a concert. And I'm even going back to like when I was in high school and early 20s. You go to a concert, you'd be waiting in line, and there'd be a radio station doing like a live remote as you're entering the arena or whatever. And it was just like this big party atmosphere. You guys still do a lot of those concert remotes?
Yeah. We try when we have a big event, or we weren't out at the Post Malone Jelly Roll show, but no, whenever there's a big show, we're going to be set up outside of it. Without a question. Yeah.
And then the radio tends to be pretty involved with like community events and different. I always think of Team Mazda Subaru. Seems like something that the radio's been involved with a long time.
Yeah. Well, that's an example of people believing in radio. So that particular group of car dealerships, now they're separate. Treasure Valley Subaru and Team Mazda, they're separate, but they're owned by the same company. That dude, those guys believed in radio.
Yeah,
they're like, listen, if we have radio guys endorsing us, that's going to be a huge deal, and they believed in that more than anybody else. And it's one of the reasons why they've been really successful, is because but also we hold them accountable too. When we hear back from people who don't have the best experience, what happened, it's important to them that what is being said is something they're following through with. And sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't, but it's more often a good thing as opposed to something bad happening. But that's an example of how that makes a difference for a company. When you do endorsements, when somebody is publicly endorsing your product, we try to do it with stuff that we actually would use or believe in, that sort of thing, because then it just feels like you're just another commercial if you're not believing in what you're using.
Yeah. I've been out just driving around, listening to the radio and hear you on a remote somewhere. And I know a handful of times over the years, I'm like, I'm going to go say hi. You might be like in a tire store or
I was at I think at Les Schwab or something here, just not far from your house. Like last year. Yeah. Like their grand opening. And you didn't show up.
I didn't. I'm sorry.
I would have given you something.
A set of new tires?
Tchotchke.
Let's see who else is here. Kat Dooley. Hey guys, happy Tuesday. Hi, Kat.
Former X-Rock girl.
Chris Fuqua is here. Hi there.
Oh,
from all the way from Nampa.
Fuqua, buddy.
Yeah, we got Nampa and we got Ohio.
Let's see, Chris Fuqua. He is the originator of many Big J stories. He's from Rock the Mountain.
Yeah,
from Rock the Mountain. There's a lot of crazy stuff that happened at Rock the Mountain.
Oh yeah.
Man,
I think Midline played Rock the Mountain 3 different times, and I want to say like 3 different locations.
Yeah. It was all over the place.
Seemed to move around a lot. James says, when driving long distances, I've always preferred to listen to the radio. Hearing the talking keeps me engaged and more alert.
Smart.
Yeah, because you feel like you're kind of being part of a conversation in some way when they're going on, and the banter and things like that. I think
at first, I think a lot of radio talking heads were skeptical about podcasts. And they're like, people aren't going to be able to be successful and have their own podcasts because they weren't radio people.
Yeah.
And that couldn't be further from the truth. But you can definitely, see how podcasts fill that niche as well, James, for a lot of people, because you can listen to a podcast like the Drummergy Podcast and feel part of the conversation too. I listen to podcasts all the time, but I can definitely tell the difference between somebody who has an understanding of what they're doing and what they don't.
I really I wanted to keep this live and interactive. Some people do like a pre-recording thing, and I'm not saying I would never pre-record. I guess it just depends on who I'm talking to, but
right. Well, I'm guessing that's why I got dragged out here early in the morning. So it's okay.
I was like, this will be easy for Big J. He can. Yeah, he's used to being up at ridiculous hours.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So Sunday night is a local show spotlight.
Yeah. Exclusive.
Yeah. From 10 to midnight.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really that's I mean, that's been going on since the pirate radio days.
No.
Well, there was a Sunday night.
Oh, back in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It went away for a few years.
Did it really?
Yeah. Yeah. It didn't start until 18 years ago, until Nic got here.
Oh,
so
okay.
Nic is the boss.
Yeah.
And he, there had been a couple of programmers that had come in before he got here. That Jason, he believed in local music, and so he was working his way towards that. I think at some point, and then he ended up getting a great job opportunity and left. The next guy came in, and he's just getting his foothold in, and he's like, "Yeah, that sounds like a good idea." And then he leaves. Another guy come in, and so it wasn't until Nic got here. Nic really believed in it, and he was a big fan of the bands of the local scene that we had here, and so he was able to help pull the trigger on making that show happen on Sunday nights. And so it's been 18 years pretty much.
So I wouldn't know what other markets are like as far as that goes. Is that a unique thing for?
No, not completely unique. No, there are plenty of other stations that have that that kind of show. Yeah, for sure. There are not a ton of them though.
What is your opinion? And this might be a hard question to ask, but how does I know the answer, but I'm asking because they don't.
I understand. Or at least
I think I know.
I understand.
How does a band actually get on the radio in like regular rotation type of deal?
Oh gosh,
beyond the local spotlight
in regular rotation.
Yeah.
It's near impossible. It's near impossible.
Yeah.
At this point, but not impossible. I think it depends on where you start. Like you're not going to be able to start with a station like the X, just because we're a monitored radio station. So every song we play gets monitored, and it creates the chart.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be hard to take away one of those spots for a band that nobody's heard of before.
Right.
Breaking into rock music right now is a very difficult thing to do. It's expensive, and it's just the way it is. Promotions and promoting your band is expensive. So that's the first thing you get over. But there are tons of stations across the United States, a ton of rock stations who are, they're indicator stations. So they're not completely monitored, but like for example, The Edge in Twin Falls, great radio station. Brock is awesome. He runs that, and he gives, I think, bands a good opportunity, and it's important for that. And then stations like KCVI, the Bear, K-Bear in
out of Salt Lake.
Yeah, no, not that one. The one in Idaho Falls and Pocatello area.
Oh, okay.
Victor runs that station, does an amazing job. He plays a ton of local stuff too, I think. So there's opportunities out there once you start piling up those, then that might give you a good story that you can help bring. And it's just hard for a station like ours to give a shot to just one band.
Sure.
And then it's a risky endeavor. And so, but that's always still been my dream, is to have a category spot for a local band in regular rotation. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but so that was the compromise with exclusive. It's like, hey, let's play a bunch of local music.
Well, I think it's great because it gives all of us a home to so to speak.
Yeah.
On a place to any radio play it is good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think one thing that I learned in the last few years is, like, when we put out Ghost, our song Ghost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Scott Alexander from Dishwalla played bass on that song and was in the video and helped us. And he really liked that song. And so he sent it off. Now I can't remember the name of the guy or the company off the top of my head, but he was like, I'm going to send this song off to somebody to see what they think about maybe pushing it to radio, knowing that there's a cost involved with that. And the guy came back, yeah, the song's great. The production's, it's where it needs to be for broadcast quality. I'm going to write a proposal to try to market this to radio. $10,000 for like a 1 month push.
Yeah.
It was like, wow. Okay. That was like a real wake up call, I think, for us. Like, do we really want to spend that much money as an experiment?
Yeah.
On doing that. So yeah, like you said a few moments ago, it was
you should have called me immediately. And I would have said, don't do it.
Well, we didn't.
I know.
We did. So then when we put out Onward, you probably know Tim Binder.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So he works for New Ocean Media.
Yep.
Yeah.
Going way back, because he was talking to you guys like decades ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back in the Gotham record era a little bit.
Yeah, that would be 2002. Is that right, Mrs. Producer? 2002?
3 and 4, somewhere in that area.
Yeah. So James says, even the talking between songs is engaging. That he's talking about when he was driving.
Well, you would hope so, James.
Yeah.
That's where we judge ourselves.
Mary the producer wants to know, so how does the station choose who to play and which of their songs to play?
Yeah. So that's my other job. It's not I would say it's more like an art form. There's multiple factors that go into that. Chart play is one of those important things. Like, we want to partner with the bands. We want them to be successful, because that's good for everybody. Because the idea is, like, you start playing a song and it gets really successful. People start requesting it, and then that starts the ball rolling of the opportunity for then the band to come to town, sell out. I mean, this is how you build a brand.
Yeah.
And that's kind of always how we've looked at it, in the last 18 years since Nic has been here, is we want to help create those brands. That's why the free X Show series is so important to us, because it would give us the opportunity to play a band that nobody really heard of, and bring them to town and have people go see them. And then the next time they come to town, they sell a lot of tickets.
I think that was the case with like Avatar, wasn't it?
Avatar. There's been a couple other bands that have really been, but a good handful of them. Look, early on, one of the first free X shows was Chevelle. Evanescence, The Killers. These were bands that we identified early on as somebody that was going to be really good one day, and we got the opportunity to have them come in for free. And so they take up one of those slots, and that's okay, and we get a chance to play that as much as we can and get people familiar with the band. But that's a difficult thing. Radio is so subliminal that you don't realize it. And so, finding the music isn't hard. We still get, like you said, the promotions, people are pushing music in our direction. And so we have to, decide, who do we want to play? Does it make sense for the radio station? Does this band have the opportunity to come to town? Do they have the opportunity to continue to, to put out good music? What's the rest of their catalog like? All of those things are factors into it. And it's not easy, especially when we're the kind of station who, as a rock station, has been very successful ratings wise, and not all of them are. We take it, we only have like 20 available current spots where a new song is going to go, and they rotate through. And so we have to be very judicious in deciding what those bands are, and if it's going to work or not.
Yeah. Well, I would think, like, if you took a local band, for example, and put them on the radio, do you feel like that's a backwards thing for their career? Because, like, okay, well, let's say we put you on the radio, you have no tour, you're not doing anything else to further your career.
It would be a factor. Like, that would definitely be a factor. It's like, are you capable of being out on the road for 365 days? Because when we're a monitored radio station, that is going to get noticed. Like, a band that's not on a list for anybody, that's going to get highlighted and noticed right away. This has happened in the past. This happened with a band here locally that was getting some play. And, it's a lot of pressure comes with that. And it's not always easy for everybody to go, but like, throw everything in the air and go, let's go. That seems like an easy thing to do, but it's not. And so, you want to make sure that they're prepared for what's going to happen, because it can be a crazy thing. And I think younger bands are the bands that have the most availability to throw everything into the wind.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But they're also the least ready to do that.
Yeah.
But every now and then somebody's going to take a chance, and hopefully it works out.
I know one thing that Midline experienced when it was still pirate radio, and we were on the radio, like, heavy rotation for like 2 years.
Yeah.
There were a lot of, there were a handful of people that said it to our face, but you would hear grumblings like, well, why do they deserve it and we don't, or whatever. But I just felt like we were doing the things necessary to, especially at that point in our life. But going back to Tim Binder and the Gotham Records days with Midline and things like that, when we released Onward last year, no, it was the fall of, it was the fall of 23, right, producer? So we released that video, I think, was it the beginning of December? We filmed it in November. And so I talked to Tim Binder. I was like, are there any smaller like marketing packages that we could do as a test for radio? And he did a 6-week thing for us, which was like $2,000, but it was all small market deals. There was a
college station, things like that.
There were those, and then like online radio stations, and then some other stations like in the middle of nowhere, like probably like a farming community or whatever. So we agreed to do that, and it started like the first week of January of 2024. Well, that's when we discovered my mom was sick and we were losing her. So my attention to like that whole process was completely derailed because of what was going on with my mom and our family. But it was cool to see who would choose it right away and play it, and those who were like, even in those little small radio stations, some of the response was like, I've got 60 songs in line ahead of this, like just to get them to listen to it was like a gamble. So it's just like, it was kind of a telling moment. It was like, even for something really, really small, like in Iowa, or there were some places like in Oklahoma that were more rural areas. It was like, wow, that's good to know, like where we fit in all of that.
Well, I mean, at the cost and expense of promoting, I mean, there's a reason the record labels, I mean, they spend a lot of money to do that, to promote their bands. And it's not, I mean, it's an imperfect method, just like most, art forms are.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's, there are a lot of, I don't want to say dirty, but I mean, just bad players in the whole thing. And, money comes down to it sometimes, and that sucks.
Yeah.
Because, clearly if you were to give every band an opportunity to get on stage, and that's the problem that we have when we do Battle of the Bands and things like that. It's just like, who do you give the slot to?
Yeah.
When all these bands are deserving, at some point, somebody has to make a decision. And, it's one of those things you hope that they're just being objective about that. It's hard to be objective, especially when you have to think about the people listening and how they're going to react for your radio station. It's not an easy decision, but I think, we snuck Onward into Cage Match too.
You did.
Just because, and that's always a risky thing because you're a local band. And so people are going to react. But, the thing that you had said, you mentioned about when you were getting a lot of airplay, and I don't say the jealousy or envy of some of the other bands. That's a consideration too, because, we need our local bands to be part of, the thing we try to create with exclusive, and that's why we loved, again, the Free X Show series, because it was an opportunity for us also to, we needed the local shows. We needed the local bands to help make that work.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to fill some slots, but give people the opportunity to see these great bands that we have here in the Treasure Valley that might not otherwise see them or might not show up. Like that's the thing. Getting somebody to show up early to see a local band is a whole other, thing. But it was really important to us to have, the best local bands on our side. And, there would definitely be a wedge driven in there if we were just pick one band and be like, this is our band, because there are so many really talented bands here in the Treasure Valley. But now with technology and with recording abilities, there's so much talent out there. And a lot of it is great recorded and not so great live, because they don't have the experiences of being up there on stage that we could, afford to give them when we're doing the Free X Show series. And I don't know if that's ever going to be able to come back after COVID.
The Free X Shows.
Yeah, it's just real tough because we're in the roaring 20s right now. And like the venues have like hold dates, like 7 or 8 hold dates. I mean, trying to get in somewhere.
Yeah.
Is like, and our partner was the Knitting Factory. And so it's hard to negotiate an open spot and then find the right band, and then have them be able to come through on their touring cycle. It's very difficult.
Well, when I talked to like Sandra over at the Rev and Mike at the Knitting Factory, pre-COVID, Midline got put on a lot of opening slots.
Yeah.
And now post, it's a lot of bands have tour support with them already.
Yeah.
So those shows are like really few and far between, so it would seem at the moment.
Yeah.
That it's hard to get on a.
Yeah, and then and a lot of people reach out like, their favorite band's coming down.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They'll reach out like, how do we get on this show?
Yeah.
And I'm like, we have zero say on that. Like, well, I'll send a message, maybe be like, hey, think about this band or
how
something.
Private is your phone number?
I'd never, not enough. But Facebook is not private, I guess.
Yeah,
and so I never hear back on those emails when I send them out. But
yeah.
It's a tough thing, and it's a tough spot for music. But I think we'll get past it.
So James says, do you feel that the huge corporations buying so many stations across the country has changed the ability of the local station to pick their own content?
Well, I mean, I think that's true and false at the same time, because the problem with the conglomerates and the bigger groups who own hundreds of stations, or multiple stations. I mean, we're part of a private company, a family company that owns a bunch of stations throughout this southwest and northwest of the country. But we all kind of manage our own, stations. Some of those have regional managers that make decision. Music Choice, there's one person who makes a decision for those songs. Mm-hmm. That can be problematic at times, but I think it's an easy person to blame, right? And I think in a lot of cases, there's not as much micromanaging going on as people think there is. We kind of hear this all the time. Oh, you got a playlist to play. And I'm like, yeah, we do have a playlist. We spend money on research that tells us what you don't want to hear. And it's crazy.
Yeah.
The human psychology is don't even get into it, because it's sad and depressing of what they want. I remember a conversation that we had one time when, I think it was a few years back, when multiple stations decided, hey, it's time for us to play Nirvana. And you would turn the station from the X and you would hear Nirvana, and a station you didn't think you would hear.
Right.
I think, and now, the 90s stuff, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Smashing Pumpkins, it's all over the place, because it's classic at this point.
Isn't that weird to think?
It's not great. No, I don't like thinking about that at all. But, the problem is like, that's what people our age want to hear, and they're comfortable hearing it, as opposed to hearing something they've never heard before. They've never heard a song before. When you play a new song from a new band, it's a song that is risky, because people will hear that. I don't recognize that. Click.
I experienced that playing shows live. Not so much with Midline, because I think that's just like, I think generally speaking, everybody knows that's an original band, and we kind of built a name for ourselves over 35 years.
But rare a cover ever.
Yeah. And
part of a medley, but not a cover.
Right. And so with Cliff, we probably have a mix of 50-50, like 50% originals and 50% covers. And we love the originals. That's like where my heart is with the original stuff. But you could be playing this killer kind of a swing dancey groove upbeat thing, and people will be like, don't you know something can't you do something that we know? You get a lot of that as you're playing. Cliff experience is like he's playing and he's singing, and somebody's like, hey, I know that you're in the middle of singing, but could you stop and listen to me for a second? I want to hear some AC/DC. Yeah,
the psychology is it's an interesting thing, and that's sober. I mean, not even getting into when people have been drinking and having a good time.
Yeah, your sister says classics is the 70s.
I'm sorry, Sid. That's somebody who's much older. I think the actual definition is 25 years old is classic. So yeah, we passed that. And so, it's also an interesting concern. Like, we don't want to age out of making money, right? Because the prime demo is currently 25 to 54, 55 in that area is the prime demographic that you want to be winning in. And so, I'm getting up towards that myself. And so, finding those younger bands to hang our hat on is very difficult these days, because what's happening behind the scenes with music and radio, the hit driven stuff, bands are becoming like, they rise up the charts so fast and they become number one. It's very rare for a band to stay there for a long period of time. On the rock side in particular, where it's going to create those kind of songs that last forever, that you will know forever. Like Enter Sandman from Metallica. Sure. You will know that song forever. It Smells Like Teen Spirit. You will know that song forever because of how much it got played. Any Nickelback song, right. Bands aren't getting those songs played as much, even if they're number one, because they're cycling through them so fast. We're not creating those kind of bands right now in a traditional form. It's another story, I think, with social media that's creating their own opportunities to make those kind of stars. And we're seeing that unfold with Sleep Token. Yeah. A band who I just, it blows my mind how quickly that has become a thing. Because 2 years ago, I was in this moment, I was playing at the Rev Center and Nothing More, and then Sleep Token. Sleep Token was opening up, and I was there to do some stuff with Nothing More, and I hadn't heard any Sleep Token before. And I was walking through, and I was like, "Who's this band on stage?" And I look, and they're all dressed up in this whole thing, and I was like, "Hey, this is pretty cool." Yeah. And I made a note of it because I wanted to keep track of that. And then 6 months later, they sell out the Knitting Factory in like 10 minutes. Wow. 10 minutes. Wow. From a band that never had a song on the radio. Yeah. That was alarming, scary, all at the same time. But at first, your first reaction is, okay, this isn't real. It's not real. It can't be happening. But then when, the ultimate decider for myself is when people spend their hard-earned money to buy a ticket to a show. That to me says that band is something, because especially when not a lot of people know who they are. Well, a lot of people knew who they were. They just weren't getting it from the radio side. Yeah. It's a whole new, and I think that's the Gen Z or whatever, the millennial way is that's happening again with another band called President that's out there. And I think that's pretty cool. And now, Sleep Token has a major record label. And so, we play them on the radio, and it's a different vibe. That's for sure.
So that would kind of go back to what I was saying, like even for a local band, like Sleep Token was doing all of that without the radio happening first, right? So do you feel like
there was a little bit, yeah, like they were starting in a small amount, but they were, to answer your question, pretty much.
Yeah, so I think
but they had to create a story, what I mean? They can't just be 4 or 5 dudes on the cover, with long hair anymore. You know what I mean? They had to create a story, and I blame this on one of my favorite bands, Ghost, who did such a good job of creating characters and a story and making it theatrical to really grab people's attention. And, Sleep Token has taken that to another level. And, I love the aspect of not knowing who they are as individuals. I thought it was a bummer when Tobias had to come out as, Papa Emeritus, because I felt that allure was really, really cool and fun. And, it's our modern age and version of Kiss for the most part.
Yeah. So with, what was I going to say? It was going to be profound, people. I'm
profound.
Like Ghost having that character and kind of that mystique to it, kind of like Sleep Token. It's like the modern version of Kiss, right? Because they're this character. You don't see anything past that.
You can't just have that. You have to have the music.
Well. Yeah.
And to me, the reason I love Ghost so much is they seem to be able to capture an era of music in modern form. Yeah. And not just copy it, but make it their own. Sleep Token, I don't quite get musically all of it. I'm not a hater by any means. And I get why they're so popular and they're doing some amazing things, but it's not like I have a profound love for that.
Well, like with Ghost, I'm not familiar with a lot of their catalog, but anything I've heard is very easy to sing along to. The earworm.
It sounds huge.
Yeah.
No matter what song it is, it sounds like it took 18 people to make.
Yeah, it's really, really great. I get exposed to new music more from my students coming here.
Oh yeah.
Because my students are younger,
a
lot of them, and they're like in the know of.
So is there some rock band that you're not familiar with that they're like?
Well, right now it's like everybody's a Sleep Token fan.
Okay.
Because the drummer is 2. That's his name.
Oh, okay.
And it's 2. And they're like, they come in, have you heard of Sleep Token? Have you heard it too? Like, yeah. And they want to learn Sleep Token songs. So right now, at the moment, Sleep Token is the thing.
What song do you then lean on to learn?
I don't even know the name of the song.
Okay.
They bring it in and I pull it up on YouTube or whatever and listen to it. And I'm like, you're
amazing.
For that.
You're amazing.
You're not ready for that. Let's see. The producer says calling it by the decade is so much less age sounding.
That's
like 90s rock sounds fine, but calling 90s rock classic doesn't.
We don't do that. I mean, we don't actually do that.
That's like calling Midline a classic rock band. Like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah. Or oldies.
Yeah, because when I think of classic rock, I think of something from the 70s. That would be the classic.
Sure.
I wanted to ask you about the radio station gets a lot involved with community things and supporting different
charities.
Yeah.
Platforms.
So the one that you seem to have is the Alzheimer's thing.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Alzheimer's Association of Greater Idaho. And the community part, let's start with the community part for the radio station. Like, this is, again, something that we learned is super important because for the longest time, the radio station was the black t-shirt station.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was one of those problems because advertisers would be like, regardless of how good our ratings were, there was concern that the people listening were not up to standards. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like people who listen to rock music are probably criminals and drug addicts, that kind of thing. And we're
they
like,
put them in a culture of something.
All right, grandpa. But so that is a stigma that we had to fight for many years and we had to dissolve. And we just decided that, the best way to do that is to show that, people who listen to rock music also care about their community.
Sure. And
not just their rock community, but the community in general. And so we started to, be very active in supporting veterans. That's still very important to the radio station and supporting first responders and those sort of folks. It wasn't a gimmick. We really wanted to help. And PTSD was one of those things that had started to really become apparent in our veterans, and now also we're starting to really learn how important it is to have that for our first responders and how much trauma they see on a daily basis. So we started there, and then my mom got diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and so we didn't know anything. And Sid is there. She's was living in Salt Lake at the time. My sister Carlene still lived here, and she ended up being the caretaker for mom and living with her for a few years there before she had to go to assisted living. But it was one of those things where it's very stressful. It's awful to watch. And as you learn, mom had dementia for quite some time, probably good 8 to 10 years, I think. And so we didn't find the Alzheimer's Association right away. And that's the thing right there that is important to me, is that I didn't hear about it anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be that voice when I realized what the association does and how it's not just about the research. Obviously, that's super important. And there are some amazing gains being made right now, but it's about the programs that are set up to help the people who are living with this disease and dementia in general, because it's very misunderstood. There's a lot of different aspects to it.
Yeah.
So the programs that are there are so amazing. And that's one of the things I was like, okay, let's delve in. And I got pushed a little bit because my buddy Tim Johnstone, who works on the river.
Yeah.
he's lost both of his parents to Alzheimer's.
Okay.
So he'd been working with the Alzheimer's Association for a while. And he let me, come in and help out. Every year we do the walk to end Alzheimer's, and he and I together now, we MC it. It's great. I can't thank him enough for letting me do that. And it really started to make me feel like I had some, grab some power back from that disease, because you can put forth a lot of, energy and effort, and it feels like you're making a difference instead of just losing somebody that you care about,
right,
or watching them fade away.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it is an awful disease, but there's so many awful diseases that need attention. I wish we could touch on all of them, but that's why Alzheimer's is the one I kind of picked to be my platform. And I would do some stuff here to raise some money, and I think I was making a big enough difference where the folks at the in the association reached out to me and wanted me to take a bigger role, and they asked if I would be the chair on a committee for the longest day. And I was like, yeah, let's try this out. I want to see what it's like to do something and put myself in a place that I don't normally belong, like in a corporate meeting. I was like, let's see if I can pull that off.
T-shirt wearing corporate meeting guy.
Yeah, exactly. And so I brought my enthusiasm and, with it. And we were really successful for a couple of years. And so I've really enjoyed being a part of that. They sent me to Atlanta this past year for their leadership summit to hear about what's going on with all of the research that's happening. And we're in the era of treatment where there's some treatments now. They're very expensive, but they're getting to a point where it's not going to be that expensive. And they're really learning a lot about the disease and, some surprise, medications that are helping that you didn't realize. I mean, that's been the case, I think, for a lot of these GLP-1s. That are helpful for diabetes and things like that. It's also finding some ways that it might be helpful for dementia and Alzheimer's. But that's essentially where I started, was when my platform. And then Nic, he has kids with special needs. And so he delved into the autism, the walk for autism. And so there's that has gone. There isn't a place right now for that in the state of Idaho. Unfortunately, they closed up shop. So it's difficult on him. And so we just try to find places where we can be effective and help rock to end Alzheimer's, for example.
Yeah.
Like I was like, let's do this every year. You know what I mean? And so I was like, the first people I called was Midline to do that first rock to end Alzheimer's. And I thought, this is something I could pull off because of all the years I've been spending promoting concerts, at least the advertising of them and putting it together, the free X shows. I'm like, I can do this. It is crazy hard and stressful because,
a lot of time dedicated to
it's
that.
Time dedication. It's a lot of details. Without your help, I would have been completely lost because you had all the, technical details for putting on a show and that sort of stuff. And I realized halfway into it, I was like, I don't ever want to do this again. And it was great. We raised a lot of money. We had a lot of fun, and it was a lot of fun. And so I was like, I probably won't do that again. And then Scott calls me from Karen Comes Killing, and he's like, hey, we're doing this show. Would you like to be a part of it? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Why not? And it was Karen Comes Killing, Midline, The Return of Half the World.
Yep.
And awarded me on July 25th at the Heritage Social. So we're kind of flagging that as a rock to end Alzheimer's show. Karen has agreed to give 10% of the door to Alzheimer's Association. I think we're going to raffle off a guitar. So we're working out those details. And I'm having some shirts made with the rock to end Alzheimer's logo and some information on the back. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I wanted to get as much out there. Well, I knew that it was happening to me. It's probably happening to other people.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was like, I have a voice here. I should use it for good instead of just fun.
Right.
And that's how I kind of got into that. And it's not always easy. And it's a lot of pressure because you want to raise as much money as you can, especially when you raise your hand to be in charge of stuff. It's very, it's like a second job.
Yeah.
I had to take a break for a year just because I was burnt out and I didn't feel like I was being effective. But it's one of those things where it's an opportunity to get your punches in on a disease that takes so many people.
So Sid says, yes, on Alzheimer's Association, Jay's done great work getting the word out. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, sis.
James Harrison, not to be an insulting question, is radio leading or following the music business? Has social media become the leading avenue?
I mean, maybe, sure. I think that it certainly has its place, and that there are, just like any opportunity for a band to raise their hand and be like, hey, over here.
Yeah.
Social media gives them that opportunity in a way where, like when they make big movies, right? They have screen tests, and people that will make some decisions on the movie that way. It's the same for social media, where a band has the opportunity to throw their music into something. And if it takes off, well, there's something there. A good example of that is a band called Sleep Theory. That's becoming very, very popular, who had a song that started out really on TikTok. And it's one of those things where, okay, alone, unless they become huge like Sleep Token, they're going to need that extra help. So it's a way for us to also find talent. So I think it's a more of a partnership and not necessarily of who's leading what where, because ultimately still, at least in the rock world, like it's going to be tough unless you have those outliers like Sleep Token. Without the radio presence, it's going to be hard to become a thing.
Yeah. So they can work more hand in hand rather than like a competing thing.
But radio people, you're right, James. In a lot of ways, a lot of them are going to be defensive about it because they didn't find the band. There's a lot of ego BS in this business, but wherever you can find talent, especially if it's talent that people are reacting to, you should be happy that you were able to find it.
Yeah. I know that, like, going back to when I was younger in high school and stuff and listening to the radio, that was like, it was either radio, magazines, well, that was pretty much it. Radio or magazines. It was print media or listening to the radio. And I remember hearing Dream Theater for the first time and just completely, now it was later at night when it came on the radio, but I was like, holy crap, what is this?
Yeah.
And then Queensryche was also the same for me, like discovering Queensryche through radio. There was no social media. Right.
Oh yeah.
And so then you would listen and you would start to hear the song more and more frequently on the radio as it got into rotation more and more. And then there would be a concert announcement.
Right.
Yep. And tickets go on sale on whatever date. And they had
select a seat. TCBY.
Yeah.
TCBY.
They had select a seat at Albertsons. And I would go and stand in line and wait to get a number to come back and get in line by order.
Weren't those the days?
Oh man, it was so exciting. And you'd stand in line with other people who you didn't know.
Community.
Yeah.
Community. That's community right there.
And you could become friends with somebody who just loves the band just as much as you do, and that was such an exciting, I really miss that part of music.
Yeah. We really now it's just at the show, maybe standing in line to get into the show.
Yeah.
Because you don't have that with the online thing, and it's scalpers, and it was harder to scalp back then.
But on the other hand, like I run across people all the time. They're like, I hate social media for whatever reasons they have. And I'm not the one to tell them, well, you're wrong.
Right.
But maybe they are wrong. I just think, every band has the world at their fingertips through this.
Mm-hmm.
And you just got to get creative with how you're marketing and how you're competing with all those people that are online doing those things.
Yeah.
And I think Sleep Token's an example of how that worked for somebody but they went all in with it, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Before, we're nearing the end of our time here. Chris Fuqua says Headbangers Ball. Headbangers Ball was awesome.
Yep.
MTV was awesome. David Rose. Hey, Fred and Big J.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah. David is one of those, David
he's
Rose.
An ex-baby.
Yeah.
He's the next baby who became the thing that he wanted to be, a musician.
Yeah.
And he's in a band and he's making it work.
Yeah. I remember meeting him. I don't know how many years ago. But I would see him at shows, and that's how I met him. And then I think somewhere in all of that, he said he played guitar and was putting a band together, and then watch him actually do that to where his band ended up being part of the Free X show experiences. And I think that's really cool to witness somebody who had that desire.
Without a doubt. And I love to give him a hard time about it.
Yeah. Talk about a time I never knew. Albertsons and concert tickets back in the day, but I did go to the TCBY a few times to get concert tickets. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Mary says, I remember getting tickets once at the Albertsons at State in Glenwood because fewer people went to that to buy tickets.
Oh, hey, Greg.
Greg
what's
is
up?
Here. Good morning, Greg. Yeah.
Good morning, dude.
Yeah. Okay. You work in radio. These world famous bands come around.
Yeah.
And you get this privilege of privilege, right word? You're in this unique opportunity because of what you do for a living to interact with these people and interview them and get to know them.
Yeah.
Who was your favorite?
I mean, that's easy. It's Metallica.
Okay, well, I already knew that.
I mean, I had to work my butt off to meet the entire band.
Yeah.
Because what happened was, let's look at this. Okay, so I love Metallica since the late 90s.
Yeah.
Right. The first band, I knew all their names in the band. I mean, to me, that's important, knowing their names, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, they just seemed to be a band that resonated with me musically, and that was just a Black Album. This is before I discovered all the other stuff that I learned through you guys and Scott, most importantly, teaching me about Metallica. So the first time I got to see them was in 2005 at the I'm trying to think of what it was called at the time, probably Taco Bell Arena.
Yeah. At Boise State.
And I was the interim program director. So I got to make all the decisions. I was like, all right, I'm in charge. So instead of sending myself down because we had a meet and greet with the band, and I could have just easily said, I'll go do that. I sent Bill and Doug instead. And I regretted it every day of my life because so Lars, bands take an interest in, now it's easy, right, for bands to find out where the songs that are making sense in a particular area. They can do that through Spotify and a lot of geolocating type of things. There is so much information available to them now they didn't have before, but really you'd only have a playlist or, since we're a reporting station, every spin is out there, for a band to go look up if they have the resources to do so. And Metallica has the resources. And I was told Lars in particular had a conversation with Doug and Bill about a particular Metallica song that we were playing that nobody else plays, For Whom the Bell Tolls. Because at the time, nobody would play that song.
Okay.
Like, why are you playing that song? And they didn't know why. And I was like, well, I could have told them because of the research told us to, damn it. But so I didn't get to meet them then. The next time was 2009 when they came to town out at the Ford Idaho Center. And I got to interview Rob Trujillo inside the tuning room, which was just like, I was so scared. I was so scared. And so I reached out to Stymie to ask him, like, what do I talk to him about?
Yeah.
And then he's like, well, his name's also Stymie. And I'm like, what? That's mind blowing. And so I had a chance to, there's very few bands I'm going to be super nervous by. That was the beginning. I was like super nervous about that. And the next opportunity was 2018 when they were here at the Extra Mile Arena. And so I was like, you don't see a lot of interviews with all of the members together. I'm like,
that's true. Yeah.
How do I make that happen? I want to make that happen. And so I was like, I know, I've got some issues. Let's create a promotional opportunity. And so I put together this video about how I have a eating disorder, and I've been working through that, a binge eating disorder. And I was like, I had a plan to lose weight and to manage it. And I called it the #Metallica diet because I was super, inspired by their story and their career, and Hardwired to just self-destruct had just come out. And that mentally made perfect sense to me. I was hardwired to self-destruct and it just resonated with me. So I sent a video to their management company, who obviously that's the luxurious part about my job is I have direct access to them if I want it. And I sent this video to them saying, hey, if I can lose 100 pounds before you get here, can I interview all 4 of you guys? And I wasn't sure if that would work or not. And sure enough, they sent a video back, all 4 of them together, and that we posted. Their management guy had come into town, I thought, for something else, but he was coming in to tell me that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And show me the video, and it was mind blowing. So yeah, that's a band I definitely got nervous, but it was so much fun. It was only 15 minutes. That interview's up on our YouTube page, but it was fastest 15 minutes in your life.
Sure.
I wish I could have stood there for a couple hours and talked to him, but there are a few bands that I'll get, nervous about. The more you interview a band, the better it is for everybody, because then you can really get to some questions and to some things and thoughts that are important to people other than just the standard questions, which we try to get to, but it's hard because it's, developing a rapport. And once we've interviewed Corey Taylor a ton. So we have a great rapport with him. There are some artists like Papa Roach. We have a great rapport with them. So, you can tell right away, or Shinedown, for example, they're really good about knowing who's in radio and where they're at, and creating that rapport to have a very successful interview and to really help people get to know the bands better. Cause that's really what it's about.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to answer the question.
Okay.
Who's the worst you've interviewed?
The worst interview?
Yeah.
Like musician.
Yeah. Do you want to say?
Yeah, I will say I had a rough interview with Chad Gray when he was with Mudvayne.
Okay.
So
I could see that.
He was it was I don't know, they were playing this like broke down acoustic type of thing at the Knitting Factory. And so they came in to do a session or an interview thing, and he just was really aloof, and he was kind of mean about it. And I was like, it had been a problem with doing some Mudvayne stuff for a while, and I was pretty bummed out about that because I really enjoyed Mudvayne. I thought they were a fantastic band. And then he was with Hell Yeah. And so he was with Vinny for a lot of years. He changed dramatically. His personality changed. And so we would do some stuff with Hell Yeah. And I just remember specifically this one time we were doing a post-show kind of, hangout after the show, which was very rare. These are my favorite times to get to be with a band, is after the show, because all the BS is over with. There's no, anxiety and stuff.
Yeah,
they're done. Right. And so we're in there, we're hanging out, everybody's getting autographs. And I talking to Chad, and I actually brought this up to him. And I was like, hey, we talked several years ago, and you were a little rough around the edges, but you seem totally different. And he told me that he was an angry dude. And he just, after spending so much time with Vinny, he just learned to, be a little looser and understand that, everybody's just trying to do their job and that sort of thing. And I couldn't love the man more now for saying that, and just, having that kind of respect to tell me the truth like that. And when somebody's I said it in a nice way, but I was just, because I noticed a change and a difference. But that's a perfect example. And it's taught me a valuable lesson that everybody has to have time to mature and to develop. And, bands, especially when it comes to bands and playing live, there is a process where they're always trying to get better, or at least if they're doing it right, they're always trying to get better. And so I might see a younger band who live is a little rough around the edges or might not be great, but that doesn't mean that they can't one day be an amazingly live band, because they have to work through that and they have to learn how to play with each other. And to me, that's why rock music is the best, because you're taking 4 or 5 different people who are playing their part, and it has to come off and sound and look like one. And it's the most difficult thing in the world to do. But when you pull it off, it's like that golf swing that that just feels so natural and perfect, and it makes you want to do it again and again and again. Yeah. That's what I love about rock music. Yeah. And that's what I learned from Midline. So I learned from all the years of watching you guys practice and play and live, and all the times we were at the Fourie's bar.
You even got to experience a broken transmission in a motorhome with us.
Yes. Yeah. All of it. All of those things you take for granted when you're just going to a show. Yeah. But when you get to see how the sausage is made and then see it all play out. It gives you a different perspective.
Yeah. Well, we've definitely enjoyed our friendship with you over decades now of doing music.
And it's family. Stop with the friendship business.
It's family. Yes. James says, good show. Got to run. Your sister said, love listening to your stories. Tom Keithley. Good morning, Tom.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah, he's up there in the Portland area. Yeah, I miss Tom being here. Tom is somebody I need to have on the show too. Don't you think, Mrs. Producer? Yeah. Jeremi, thanks for being here, dude.
Thanks for asking me.
So cheers with our coffee. Drummergy mugs. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you. Yes, and I'm the one that does the artwork. But I was taught by.
She taught you how to do it.
She taught me. Yeah, she does a lot of work for marketing her band and no, there's a lot to say, but just like watching and observing.
Yeah,
what she does and going, oh yeah, I should do that. And if I do something that is not very good, she'll just say that's not very good.
In the sweetest wife kind of way.
Yes. Anthony Ware, thanks, man. We are going to end this here in a moment. July 25th.
July 25th.
At the Heritage.
Yes.
With Karen Comes Killing, Midline, Half the World, and A War in Me.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
And we're working in the Alzheimer's deal.
Yeah. And it's one of the only, I was telling Scott, I'm like, the only way to get me to a show now these days is if I have to have something to do there.
Yeah.
I don't have a choice, but it's not because I don't want to be there. It's just because I'm old and tired.
Well, I mean, you've got a lot of years of getting up extremely early.
It wears on you.
And then your body just like, okay, I'm tapping out. I gotta go night.
Yeah, I'm gonna be there at 9:00 yawning while you guys are up on stage. But it's not because you're boring.
No, I know. No, I totally get it. David says he's coming to that show. Nice, David. We'll see you there.
Yeah, you better buy a t-shirt, pal.
That's right. The cool thing that I've been able to do with my in-person guests lately is once we're done here, we hit stop. The producer makes breakfast.
Ah, yes.
Are you ready for some breakfast?
Yeah, I'm ready now.
Okay, let's
go. All this talking made me hungry.
Thanks so much for joining us. Next week, I will have on the show Kendall Shue, and we're going to talk about the 25th.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I just met with him a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to go be on his show on Friday.
Nice.
The Boise Boise Live Music Podcast. I should have known the answer.
Yeah,
to that. Kendall, right. I'm sorry.
It was great until then.
Chris says, I used to work with his wife.
Whose wife?
Whose wife, yeah. Chris? We're going to hang out and find the answer to this.
Dun, 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 dun. Do, 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 do.
Oh, yeah. We'll give him a moment to respond. Big J. Big J brought us coffee.
Yep. I have a couple times. Chris. Shaw. Kendall.
Is it Shaw?
Kendall.
Yeah. Sorry, Kendall. I said Shue.
It's all right.
I meant Shaw.
Sorry.
Good grief. See, now I'm just like you on the radio.
You went off script.
I went off script. It was not on here. All right, we're going to go eat breakfast. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate it. And please like and subscribe if you're on YouTubes. That would be awesome. And follow Big J on his socials as well.
Yeah, Big J X-Men.
Big J X-Men. Okay, and listen to The Morning After with Nic and Big J.
Yeah, when you're not here on Tuesday morning.
That's right. Except Tuesday morning, you're here. All right, you guys have an awesome week. We'll see you.